we're going to be talking with Governor Roy Cooper of North Carolina, who's a year into it and just had a proposal very relevant to what we're doing. Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper, who's at the end, just gave his final State of the State address, and Governor Jeff Collier of Kansas, a surgeon who just took office. So we have the full lifespan of our governors here. Thank you. We hope that you will join along with hashtag 360, Axios 3, hashtag Axios 360. And we appreciate your reading Axios, where we make you smarter, faster on the big topics that matter most to you. And now we're honored to welcome to the Axios stage Governor Roy Cooper of North Carolina. Good morning, Governor.
Good morning, Mike.
Thank you so much for coming. My family, our constituents, we have my brother.
Apex, you say?
Yes, sir, the peak of good living.
Peak of good living.
My brother Scott is in Apex there with his wife Sherry. His son Evan is here, who you just met.
I just want you to know I'm dreaming of oatmeal, brown sugar, and bananas right now.
Well, I think that we could probably make that happen. So while you're here, that will probably happen. Governor, I was saying this is the beginning of National Governors Association weekend, and there's so many rituals that go along with that for governors, for the press, for the staff. And you were telling me that as you get used to your NGA meetings, you said that there's a little North Carolina analogy that comes to mind.
Barney Fife says, "Go, go, go." And that's what this is. So we're excited about being here and to talk with you about education, which is, I think, one of the most, if not the most important function of state government.
Now, just last week, Governor, I was telling our guests here that you had a two-pronged announcement, one part having to do with early childhood education, and one of the big goals that you have is reaching more at-risk 4-year-olds. How do we do that?
Well, first, when you look at the education spectrum, getting a career and connecting businesses with people with the skills they need and early childhood are tied together. There's a reason that we have CEOs who are over at the General Assembly arguing for early childhood education and pre-K, because the data is overwhelming that kids who get pre-K and early childhood do significantly better in school and in their career. And anecdotally, I go into a lot of schools. I try to talk to a kindergarten teacher. Most time I go into an elementary school and I say, can you tell the difference between a kid who has had pre-K and who hasn't? They will either roll their eyes and say, of course, and then they'll talk about kids who can't even hold a pencil, don't know their numbers and letters, versus other kids who are very prepared to come into school. So when we have technology executives coming to the North Carolina General Assembly arguing for funding for pre-K, you know that it matters at the end of the day. And I'm very grateful for the fact that General Assembly stepped up this time and was able to eliminate the current waiting list. We had proposed it last year, but what we need to do is to get our percentage of kids in pre-K from the current 38% in North Carolina to at least 55%. Because if we don't get them started right, then it's a long road for them to be ready to read by the 3rd grade and to keep up with their classmates, and particularly to get the kind of skills that they need in this future job market, which is moving quickly. North Carolina is working hard to keep our workforce up with innovation, because we know that the jobs of 2030, about 85% of them have not even been invented yet. Yeah, so critical thinking skills are going to be important.
So Governor, you were talking last week about high demand fields, and just tick off a couple of those and how you're getting young North Carolinians ready for them.
You know, you've got nursing, you've got data analytics, the technology field is exploding. One of the things we're trying to do is encourage girls to get in, even in elementary and high school, to get into the technology workforce. North Carolina's proud. We're second in the country, only to here in DC, for women in the technology field. About 38.7% of our women are in technology. Our technology field is 38.7% women. We have this program called Girls Go Cyber, where we're working hard to get them into the marketplace. And we work with businesses to find out what they need, and our workforce it's going to be our most important facet of my administration, because we've got to get them ready. I talk to CEOs all over the world in being the chief economic development recruiter for my state. And the number one thing they ask me is, do you have the people? Do you have the workforce? That question comes before taxes. It comes before quality of life. It is the number one question. If you do not have that workforce, they will not come. And we know that in order to have that workforce, North Carolina's got to be a top 10 educated state by 2025. And if I have anything to do with it, which is governor of my state, I expect to, we're going to get there.
And which band are you in now?
Well, I think we are a top 10 educated state when it comes to community colleges and universities. I think we have one of the best, if not the best, state university systems in the country. It's going to be critical for us, though, to continue with funding them. But we've got work to do with pre-K and K through 12. And we have, particularly in our state, where we've got growing, thriving urban areas and rural areas that have been left behind, we've got more and more of a divide in ability and kids who come from different backgrounds. Our state constitution requires that each and every child receive a sound basic education. We've got a court case about that right now. And it is up to us to make certain that every school has a quality principal, every classroom has a quality teacher. And that is our big challenge right now. And you give me those two things, I'll give you a positive school experience.
Right. Well, Governor, that's the aspiration, but of course that isn't yet the reality. So what do you do for students who are now trapped in struggling public schools?
Well, first, you treat the child as a whole. In other words, just sending a child to a school, we expect teachers to fix everything, and they're with them 6 hours a day. If we don't deal with the surrounding services of domestic violence in the home, with substance use disorder, with transportation, with health care of the kids, with counseling, then it's going to be very difficult to meet that demand. I've set up a teacher advisory council. I work closely with the North Carolina Association of Educators, which is affiliated with the NEA, and we ask teachers the kinds of things and the kinds of support that they need. But it's going to take an investment. And one of the mistakes that states are making across the country is they are reducing their tax base to the point where they don't have the funding to invest in public education like they need.
And by reducing their tax base, you're talking about tax cuts.
They're cutting individual income tax and corporate tax in North Carolina year after year after year. And I believe middle class and people who need it should get tax cuts, but not we shouldn't be cutting taxes for the wealthy and for corporations at the expense of public education. States cannot print money. States cannot lift a debt ceiling. We see some of the after effects of this in some of the Midwestern states that have decided to go this route. It is intolerable. We have to make sure we invest. And I'm working with chambers of commerce across North Carolina to say to them, now, I'm not saying raise taxes, but what I'm saying is stop these cuts and make your priority public education.
But I want to be sure I understand this, because this is quite interesting. You're saying that when you're talking to CEOs of global companies, and they're talking about coming to the state, they're more concerned about the workforce than the tax rate.
The workforce is the number one thing.
They clearly care about both.
Yes. Obviously, they care about quality of life. They care a lot about where their kids are going to go to school when they move somewhere.
Yes.
They care about low cost of living. They do care about tax structure. They care about economic incentives. But that number one threshold is workforce. And the workforce is changing dramatically even as we speak because of the kinds of skills that people are going to need in these jobs of today and tomorrow. And my effort called NC Job Ready is bringing together businesses. The first thing we're trying to do is to lower the thresholds of educational attainment and making students understand that you don't necessarily need the 2 to 4 year degree, that there are certifications that you can get so that you can make a very good living. Secondly, we're trying to bring the businesses into this. We're creating more internships and apprenticeships and getting more information about what businesses need to do. So this workforce, and then local innovation is critical because urban and rural areas have significant differences in how they approach workforce development because of the different kinds of jobs that are there and available. And you have to make sure that your workforce meets the demands of the businesses that are there and the businesses that you're trying to attract. And I think getting this business community into the state legislatures, in with their governors, to say that education is critical and that we have to invest. We've got to invest wisely, and we can talk about different policies all day about what is going to end up with the best quality education, getting teachers trained in the right way, making sure that they're given the tools that they need to succeed, make sure we measure attainment properly and measure performance both of students and teachers. Accountability is critical, and how we do that is important because we've got to show the taxpayers what they're getting for their investment.
All right, Governor, this is a question from Evan Allen, who's here with his friend Jack. You met them backstage. The North Carolina General Assembly passed a mandate requiring smaller class sizes for K-3 education, which requires hiring more teachers. But you want to raise teacher pay to meet the national average. How are both possible?
Well, first, you've got to have the tax base to make sure that you invest. But this class size that they passed for K-3 is good. You need smaller classes, particularly in elementary schools, but you got to pay for it. And the problem with the class size mandate was that they did not pay for it. And I talked to school superintendents a lot, and I had them over the executive residence just a few weeks before this mandate was to take effect. And I've never seen them this panicked because they were in a situation where they did not have enough classrooms. They did not have enough teachers. They were forced to think about whether they were going to eliminate their music and their art and their computer classes so that they could create the teachers that they need for K-3. They were putting more students in grades 4 through 6 in order, because you squeeze that balloon, it comes out one side and not the other. And they were begging their county commissioners for mobile classrooms. And almost every school system in the state was asking about mobile classrooms. That was driving the price up, and it was a situation that was intolerable. Even this General Assembly came in and said, okay, we got to phase this in. We've got to provide some funding. It was a real victory for voices of parents and principals and teachers and businesses saying, you've got to do something about this. But we do have to get our teacher salaries to at least the national average in order to make sure we attract the kind of teachers that we need to this profession.
Governor, as part of the National Governors Association meeting, you're headed over to the White House. What do you think of the president's idea of having armed teachers?
I think it's ridiculous. I mean, one thing that has done a lot for me, what has impressed me is the students who have stood up and who have come forward after this incident in Florida. I have 3 daughters, millennials. I saw a real change in them. We've seen these shootings before. They have to stop. And when these students get involved and bring their message to Washington and to all of us state leaders, they're saying you've got to do something about this. You've got to have stronger background checks. You've got to raise ages. All options have to be on the table to prevent this senseless gun violence. And we've got to do something. And hopefully, we'll see this push to get something done. The president has said that he was going to do some things, but he said some things before that he hasn't done, so we'll see.
And have you heard from teachers about this, or how do you think this will play with your teachers, or what is your plan for carrying forth this conversation in your state?
I served as Attorney General of North Carolina, and years ago, I helped all the schools to put together their critical incident response kits and their strategy plans if this type of incident were to occur. It's very complicated and coordinated, and we have put those in place. But when you hear a teacher at a Raleigh school the other day, the fire alarm went off, and students did not want to leave the classroom because that's what happened in Florida. The fire alarm was pulled, and this person shot students as they left the building. One teacher even brought their kids into the closet together to protect them. And we're talking about a fire alarm here that went off. That's unacceptable. Our schools should be the safest place ever. My mom was a public school teacher. I'm a product of public schools. My 3 daughters are products of public schools. I believe in the public schools. They should be safe. They should be effective. They've got to create the workforce of tomorrow, and I'm excited about being part of it as governor of North Carolina.
But I hear you saying that in this school shooting, which has played out so much on social media, I hear you saying that there are after effects, follow-on effects, even in your schools.
Yes, I think they are all over the country. And how can you not think about it as a parent, as a student who goes to these schools? And when you know you have those who are out there who are thinking about doing this kind of thing, and we've got to find a way to deal with this, and all options have to be on the table, and we have to be strong, and we have to stand up to opposition, and we have to make sure we make changes so that our kids are safe and they can learn. That's what they're there to do.
Penultimate question, what did you learn about education from being a Sunday school teacher?
That was one of my favorite jobs, was Sunday. I taught all my kids all the way through. I learned that lesson preparation is a difficult job, and that teachers, just the time they're in school, that's not even the half of it. I used to see my mom prepare her lessons time and time again, and I knew that was hard work. That's probably the hardest thing about it.
And you went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill as a
Go
Moorhead scholar. A week from tomorrow, we have Duke, North Carolina, or a week from today. Duke is favored. What say you?
I say Carolina's going to win the second time for the year. That's what I say. And people will tell me, hey, you're from North Carolina, you're governor of the whole state. And I've got a lot of friends at Duke, a lot of supporters, and it is a tremendous university. But when it comes time to play basketball, you know, you got to be true to yourself, okay? Got to be true to yourself.
Governor Roy Cooper, what a treat. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Good luck with Go, Go, Go.
You got it.
And we're going to get you that oatmeal on your way out the door.